perception that for them it's already a wrap. They've actually won the seat. So the biggest risk for NASA then is to tell their voters not to be worried, not to stay at home, that they must come and vote. And you realize that's what Raila Odinga did yesterday in Kisumu. And I suspect if he's keen about winning this position, it's the same message he's repeating today and is going to be repeating tomorrow. That do not be worried. Don't fear about the perception being created. Because you recall President Kenyatta has been saying that 2013 we were in the middle of shackles. There was the ICC issue, and we were not incumbents. But we were able to beat Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. This time around, there's no ICC, and we have state resources, so it's going to be double tragedy for them. So that's the biggest challenge. Then on the other hand, when you come to Jubilee, NASA has been able to drive with a lot of success. The perception that the people who are actually beneficiaries of the Jubilee administration is about family and friends. When they go to the Jubilee strongholds, like Rift Valley or Central Province, they say that we empathize with most of you. If you go to a supermarket, you'll be buying unga for the same price as a NASA supporter, but the beneficiaries of this administration are family and friends. And maybe now that's the biggest challenge for Kenyatta today. And I saw him discussing about that today in Kiambu, where he said that there's going to be more projects targeting the rural folks. So those are the two risks for the two camps.
Mark, like I mentioned, when we were just coming back from the break, Jubilee is in Suswa. NASA was in Suswa on Wednesday. NASA is in Mombasa, where Jubilee was just the other day. Jubilee will be in Uhuru Park this evening, and NASA will be there tomorrow. And it looks like a cat and mouse game as far as campaigns are concerned. Just how effective is this strategy from both teams?
You know, the interesting thing is it's a very weird strategy as far as political targeting and political communication is concerned. But I guess it's driven by the fact that both parties feel like in this last push, what you need to do is to be the last person to talk to these people, the last person to push your agenda, the last person they saw, and be able to just have that top-of-mind awareness, as it's called. However, what is missing critically in this particular election, which may seem to have been a curse and a blessing in 2013, is in 2013 there was a galvanizing issue. In this particular election, there's no galvanizing issue. There's no one particular issue that Kenyans can say this is what will identify the 2017 elections. Now, in the absence of such an issue, what you have then is a blanket marketing campaign where you're just driving your name, visibility. I was here, I visited you, I gave you promises. Now, the key here is this, as Dismas has said, this election is going to be determined by turnout. Turnout for either party. So the reality of the matter, why they're also doing these things, is to try and get that last-minute push towards bringing in this one undecided. If they're still 5%, I doubt they are, but if they're still 5%, then you've got to convince them to come on board and be able to vote on that particular day, because the trends have shown that they'll vote either party. And that's what they're trying to do, just get the last mile in the absence of a very emotional issue that is going to drive people to vote. They don't have that emotional issue. They don't have this one thing which the nation is rallying around. So they have to push visibility. And because a lot of the time, you know, there are 13 swing counties in this particular election that are perceived to be swing. In these swing counties, they have a feeling that they have a 50-50 chance. So they have to keep going back to just make sure that they still keep that 50-50 chance that they have.
Let's look at these areas that you want to say something.
Yeah, there's a point, and I was watching President Kenyatta with a lot of interest this morning. When Mark says that there is no one single issue that is affecting Kenyans, I think he's looking for an economic issue. But there is the matter of inclusivity. Because the president today in Kiambu, he was reminding his voters that all NASA is accusing him is of a lack of inclusivity, which is our Article 10 of the Kenyan Constitution. But again, not everybody in Kenya feels like he's part and parcel of this government. Because when we got the new constitution, it was expected that anybody in office, when he's forming a government, is supposed to have the face of Kenya. But there are a number of Kenyans who say that if you're not a member of the major blocks within Jubilee, then you're unlikely to get an opportunity. You're unlikely to get a public job. If you want to look for a tender, you are not likely to access it. Actually, a number of people on social media group are saying, because, you know, typically when people are getting jobs, you get the Gazette notice on Friday. So they say, if you're not a member of either the Kikuyu Nation or the Kalenjin Nation, don't even bother to look at the Kenya Gazette notice on Friday, because you're not going to get a job. So people are beginning to say, how can we be included in the national government? And who is likely to include us in the national government? And Mr. Raila Odinga has been saying, I'm the face of the person who is going to include in the national government. Well, President Kenyatta is saying, I've already done that. So it's going to be interesting now when Raila Odinga is making his closing arguments, maybe tomorrow, to zoom into the matter of inclusivity. And also for President Kenyatta, when tomorrow is going to be at Afra Stadium, he also needs to demonstrate that for the last 4.5 years I've been president, I've actually placed a premium on inclusivity.
So for you, inclusivity is a major narrative in this particular election?
Yeah, inclusivity is key in Kenya, in a third world country whereby if you're not a member of a particular tribe, you're not going to get a job, you're not going to get a tender. So if you're left out, you're going to be wallowing in poverty.
But is it as paramount as ICC in 2013?
In fact, that issue is quite contentious, especially when it comes to the cabinet. If you look at the tribal mix in the cabinet, it's actually a very mixed cabinet. It's not as uninclusive as you might imagine. And then, of course, NASA's answers to this is the Pentagon, 5 people with different positions. Now, the question, I agree with him, it is one of the issues. But if you look at the political narrative from beginning to end, since the campaign started till now, there's not been a single issue. Even this inclusiveness issue has not been a consistent issue carried throughout. And the question then becomes to the Kenyan people, the Jubilee solution to inclusivity is we've already done it. We've got XYZ, we've got Amina Mohammed, we've got the acting interior minister who's from the Kisii community. We've got all these different people. But NASA's answer then is let's include offices to include people. So the question then becomes, does the country want to go into a referendum after the elections, or does the country want to continue as is? That really is the question, and that's what it's going to boil down to.
Let's look at the areas that these two camps are focusing on: Mombasa, Narok, Nairobi. What is it with these areas? Of course, when we were speaking to one of our senior political reporters, he said that, of course, Narok is seen as a swing county. But what does it mean for either camps to campaign in Mombasa, Narok, Nairobi, and say Nakuru?
Well, when you go back to NASA, or rather when you look at 2013 and 2017, the only thing which has actually changed, when you look at it critically, is the entry of Musalia Mudavadi to the NASA team, and is actually credited as having come up with the NASA branding, and also Governor Isaac Ruto. The rest seem to be static. Of course, now you want to ignore the matter of ICC and other emotional factors. Now, the reason why you would say Narok is so critical is because Governor Ruto is said to have a bit of influence, because there's a bit of the Kipsigis community, and Governor Ruto comes on board saying, I'm the person who is going to bring the Kipsigis community to the NASA fold. And there's a bit of influence that is got within the Narok community. And over time, Raila Odinga has managed to use the TGRC report to tell the Maasais that you've been frustrated for a long time, and I'm the only person who is coming to save you. You recall he went to Kajiado the other day when he told the members of the Maasai community, please do not sell your land because of poverty. There was who and cry, and everybody said, wait a minute, Raila Odinga is getting into the incitement mode. It was very surprising, and I saw the interview you did for a candidate in Kajiado, Olelenku, who repeated the same thing, but it did not attract that kind of attention. So the Maasais are beginning to say, we are probably better off within the NASA band. And that makes Narok very exciting. I'll not be surprised tomorrow that before Raila Odinga does his last meeting at Uhuru Park, he probably goes to Suswa again to do another declaration. Because now it's been like a pendulum. Wherever you see Jubilee today, the following day you are likely to see NASA. And then also Nairobi is very important, because nobody wants to be the president of the Republic of Kenya when the county is under a different administration. Part of the reason I would again bet my head that President Kenyatta is unable to have Uhuru Park tomorrow is because the Nairobi county is under Kidero. If, say, Jubilee had made an application that we'd like to use Uhuru Park on a particular day, Kidero will most likely call the NASA headquarters to find out whether they want to use this ground or he can give it out. So Nairobi is so important. And of course, when you go to Mombasa, you begin to ask yourself, is there somebody within Jubilee sabotaging President Kenyatta? Because anytime you go attacking Joe, you raise his political capital. Anytime you go attacking Governor Kingi, you raise his political capital. And you know, they say, people from Nairobi are mistreating us. And there's that perception created, especially in the coastal region, that the father of devolution in Kenya, or what they used to refer to a long time ago as Majimbo, is Raila Odinga. The Raila Odinga is the only person who can sort out the land issue. And Raila Odinga has made political capital out of that. He's saying, you cannot expect somebody with a huge interest over the land issue to come and sort it out for you. And when you, that's why I would imagine today, if you go to Mama Ngina grounds where Raila is having his meeting, it's going to be packed to capacity because these people see him as a savior. But more important, Jubilee has been able to give Joe a lot of unnecessary political capital.
Mark, for you, what are these critical areas that they should be focusing on and why?
If you look at the electoral map of 2013, you realize that Uhuru Kenyatta's campaign succeeded in certain critical areas in Rift Valley and in Central. What is key for Jubilee is to get as much increase in percentage in their votes in the coast, in their votes in Narok, and what are considered swing states. And for them, what they're looking for is they're looking for at the coast, not to really erode Raila's gains in the coast, but to bring it from 20% to 40%. And that's the magic number. You see, what's happening in this election, it's almost like Kenya has an electoral college, but we don't know it's an electoral college. That in the sense that you can find, like, I think God last time had over half the counties, but they didn't have the presidency.
Yes.
And that's the same scenario we're seeing here. So in terms of tactical advantage, what Jubilee is doing is it's looking to the coast and even to Luyaland and even to Kisii. If they can get 30–40% of that particular vote, then they bring down what Raila has.
So what do you expect to see on the campaign in the next, say, 24 hours?
In the next 24 hours, I expect two things. Number one, I expect a lot of promises from Jubilee in terms of them wanting to increase what they've done for the country. From NASA, I expect, again, more derision, more promises, saying that we will do this differently or we'll do this more. I expect that. But more importantly, and what I'm looking at, honestly, is not what will be reported on these desks. It is what is going to go out on WhatsApp, what is going to go out on Twitter, what's going to go out on Facebook, the SMSs people are going to receive. Yes, because that's what's going to drive the emotions around this time. This is the time, by the way, your father will text you and tell you, by the way, remember there is an oath. You know, that's really what's going to drive this conversation.
Okay, Mark, quickly end it in under a minute. What do you expect in the next 24 hours?
For me, I expect that if Raila wants to become president of Kenya come August 9th, he needs to go. His message on Chapter 6 on integrity and inclusivity, he needs to take it to the next level. And then for President Kenyatta, if he wants to retain his position, he needs to focus on the development agenda, but convince Kenyans that he's not just empowering family and friends, that he's empowering everybody. Because for majority of Kenyans, a number of them actually do not care whether it's going to be President Kenyatta or it's going to be Raila Odinga. They just want somebody who can work on their socio-economic life, who can, you know, Kenyans are aspirational. There are people, there's somebody today who is driving a Vitz, who wants to buy a Mercedes-Benz. There's somebody who is staying in Dandora who wants to move to Buruburu. Now, the question they're asking themselves between Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, who is able to take cover, come up with policies so that as human beings, as rational people with selfish interest, they can, you know, they can go up the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Okay. All right. This was our political risk analyst, Bichachi, political analyst. Thank you very much. Of course, in the next 24 hours, we'll see what happens. And tomorrow, once again, we'll be here analyzing the state of the race. Let's now take a look at what else is happening in the world of sports. My colleague Moses Wahisi is on standby to bring you all the updates.
Kivumbi 2017 for all your election coverage.